So why bother? Might sound to a number of you like a valid question. Despite what we discussed around the switch businesses, this is a question that very often I see entrepreneurs are having, because characterizing the market is a long and daunting process. It takes time to figure out who is your customer, understand why you might get them interested in what you have to build. And during the same time, you're burning from excitement to launch. You have vision. You have the inner belief that you kind of nailed it. You understand exactly what your customers are looking for. Why wasting time? Confirming something you already know? Didn't Steve Jobs himself declared in 2009, we don't conduct any market studies. We don't hire any consultant. We just try to build the best product ever. And the short answer is very simple, because we're not Steve Jobs. And despite that feeling, you have to remember that, on the contrary, if you don't conduct properly that market assessment phase, the odds are you will be wasting your resources, talking to the wrong customers, misunderstanding why your customers might be interested in your product or your service. This being stated, it's also important to remember that it is a very slippery question, where it's very easy to be wrong about whether you have a market. The list of example illustrations brought by history to support that observation is almost infinite. The Xerox patent was filed in 1939. The first copier using that technology was launched in 1961. It took 21 years for the technology to reach the market for one unique, ongoing same reason. All the market studies conducted on the potential of the technology, always concluding consistently on the fact there was no market for such a technology. It was too expensive and people didn't need a product that could do several thousand copies per day. They didn't see the point. It took a small company, Haloid, who actually held the patent and who made the decision to design the first copier based on the patent, on the Xerox technology, and they launched that copier. The name of Haloid is today the Xerox Corporation, a billion-dollar company. So indeed, despite the results of market studies, there was a huge market for such a technology. A personal computer is a toy. There will never be a market for such a product. This is a quotation from Ken Olson. Ken Olson was the Larry Page in the late 70s. He built and grew a company named Digital Equipment, who was one of the star company of its time, the Google of the times. Ironically, 15 years later, Digital Equipment was in trouble and was acquired by Compaq, later on acquired by HP. The reason they got acquired is because the business was in trouble, because precisely they missed the turn of the personal computer. They didn't see the market, but also they didn't see the competitive threat that challenged their core business. In 1890, Daimler estimated that the world potential for cars was not more than 5,000 cars because it was expensive and they thought it was a luxury product that it would only sell to high-level, high-revenue people. So it is very easy to miss whether or not you have a market. But that question of market characterization is also slippery because it is even easier to be wrong about where is that market. Here is an example. Kidnap Kitties. They manufacture a stuffed toy, a stuffed cat, precisely, that embeds a technology that when you touch the toy, it emulates the purr of a cat. Some kind of a low-maintenance pet. Stuffed toy, it's a toy. Who buys toys? Kids, right? More precisely, parents for kids. So the whole business case built by Kidnap Kitties was to market it as a toy, advertise it as a toy, distribute it as a toy. Where do you buy toys? In Toys R Us, for example. But it turned out that kids didn't like it so much. But the company found, very unexpectedly, another market that turned out to be senior people who bought that stuffed toy. So the good news is that you have a market, right? Might not be the one you initially thought about, but you have a market. But the problem is that you burn all your resources advertising it as a toy, getting it distributed as a toy. Selling that same product to senior represents a totally different business case. different distribution, different advertising. So once you realize that, you have to start again from scratch. Rebuild the entire business case. And sometimes you don't have the resources to do that because you've burned all your resources marketing it as a toy. So characterizing the market is indeed a very slippery issue because you can be very easily wrong about whether or not you have a market, and more often, where could that market be? So market assessment is about all that. Building the foundation of your business case, understanding who is your customer, how you can reach them, whether or not they will be ready to pay. And remembering throughout the process that it is a long and very slippery issue that you have to address with enough humility. It's very easy to be wrong about that.